Welcome to We Flew Off the Page. I'm Mohammed Seven, and I'm here to do my very favorite thing in the world. Talk to great songwriters about how they do what they do. In each episode, we'll dive into the little details of two of my guests' songs, which I'll play for you. The songwriter has chosen one of their songs, and I have agonized over and selected the other from their catalog of wonderful music. This week's episode is brought to you by the chorus. Though it has many aliases, including the refrain and the hook, the chorus isn't trying to hide. It's usually the part of the song that shouts out, "I'm accessible and recognizable, and I'm so good you're going to hear me multiple times." The chorus plays a crucial role in songs, starting with breaking up the verses to provide some variety in our song structure. To show my appreciation for the chorus's sponsoring of today's show, I'm going to play you the chorus of a song I have not yet recorded. It's called Thursday in the City. Well, I never liked that song till I heard you sing it. There's something about the way you see the world. When I look out my window, it's just Thursday in the city. When you look out, the universe unfurls. Speaking of recording songs, we used to buy an artist's album for $15 or $20. Now $10 a month gets you every album ever made through streaming. How does that math work? Well, it doesn't. It means that all music is now basically free, and independent artists are having to find other ways to make a living. For many of us, that includes crowdfunding in a strange land called Patreon. If you like what I do on the podcast and on records, consider supporting my work for as little as $1 a month. You can find my Patreon at patreon.com/Mohammed7, which is in the show notes, on my website, on the link tree. We're still a new podcast here at We Flew Off the Page. We're small but mighty, and it will help a lot if you can also review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you do, I might read your review at the end of the show. And lastly, you can share We Flew Off the Page with a friend and win my undying gratitude. Now, who doesn't want that? Well, I'm coming to you, as always, from the Finger Lakes of Central New York. My guest today is broadcasting from their home studio in the state I grew up in, good old Massachusetts. Today I'm talking to songwriter, activist, and educator Pamela Means, who has been compared to Tracy Chapman and Ani DeFranco. She's been described as a cross between Suzanne Vega and Jimi Hendrix, and as heir to the legacy of Nina Simone. But in the end, she is undeniably herself. Pamela Means, welcome to We Flew Off the Page.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Pamela, sometimes I do a segment on this show that I call Liberation Toolkit, where I ask my guest about the ways they use music to change the world. The real secret of this show is that I invite brilliant people on so I can steal their good ideas. In terms of songwriting process, in terms of activism, and, well, anything else I'm lucky enough to learn from them. Anyhow, your work is so steeped in human liberation, I think our whole talk might just be one long Liberation Toolkit segment, which makes me very happy. I'm not sure exactly how to phrase this first question, but it's something like, what is your experience of being a musician who's trying to talk to people about oppression and liberation?
What is my experience? I suppose the worse things get in our society, the more my phone rings. I'm grateful for that. I'd prefer to be unemployed from that perspective, though.
Right. If we succeed, you're going to put yourself out of business.
And I don't think that. That's the ultimate goal. Put
Right.
myself out of business. Let's make me change careers. I think that I do not think about. It's a paradox. I don't think about the audience or the listener in the beginning, because I believe that the process of writing should be completely uncensored and unfiltered, raw, ugly, if it needs to be, the truth as it is, and then maybe then the challenge as a songwriter is to make it rhyme and put a little bit of a groove to it, and but if especially the things that I write about and think about, if I stop to think about how is someone going to hear this, I wouldn't get very far. So I have to be my own bulldozer or steamroller in a sense and just plow through whatever might hold me back if I stopped to think about it. And
It's really interesting.
my inspiration comes from writers like James Baldwin, Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, specifically those three in the beginning, because they are very straightforward and they just speak the truth, and regardless of risk or how it is received, because the speaking the truth is necessary, and I find it necessary for my own sanity and integrity, and so I just start from there and know that it needs to be heard, and most of the time people aren't going to want to hear it, but I don't care. Nothing is not going to get fixed unless we talk about things and shine a light on those dark things.
Yeah. Yeah. Given your body of work, all the things you're saying, it makes sense. It really shines through in what you're doing, exactly what you're saying. I like that you're both. You're acknowledging two ends of part of the challenge here. The fact that on the one hand, you're deciding I don't care how people feel about this, but on the other hand, you're also acknowledging the fact that you can't completely block out your feelings about how the audience might receive it, right? You're sort of, you said something about, was it being a bulldozer? You got to put your head down at some level, is what you're saying, and block out whatever, what is it? It's not your ego exactly. But whatever fears you might have of especially, for you, I imagine as a visible black woman in the world, getting up in front of people and saying controversial things sometimes, that there must be a feeling of a very vulnerable feeling there sometimes. And so it seems like those two things are different ends of the spectrum in the experience.
Right. I don't care what you think, but I want everybody to hear my message.
Yeah, right. There's
and
a contradiction.
take it in and sit with it.
Right.
I also think inside of that is, and what I learned from Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, James Baldwin, and it's true across all art, that is, we all experience the same spectrum of human emotion. Mm-hmm. And those, it's delivered in different experiences, vastly different experiences, but we all experience despair, rage, sorrow, joy, mm-hmm. love. And so if you can touch those emotions in your art, then there is the potential for it to be received by anyone and everyone. And that is my goal, as well as everything else, is to distill whatever I have to say into the raw, 7 emotions, and then spit it back out. And, it has a greater chance of reaching someone. And even if it doesn't, then I still can stand by it because I've put my own truth into it. I wasn't pretending or trying to do something. I was just, this is what it is.
Yep.
And some of us don't have the luxury to ignore how it is in the world, in this country, in our neighborhood.
Right.
And I'm one of those people.
Right. It's wonderful. I'm also a political songwriter. I also think a lot about reaching people, like opening up a conversation and not shutting it down, in my life, but also in my music. And it's interesting. I think I still am a little bit shy about really speaking my mind for fear of, I speak my mind in my songs. I say a lot, I am in many ways an overtly political songwriter, but I get nervous about preaching to the choir. I get nervous about shutting down the conversation, by sort of coming in too hot, too harsh, too specific, too on a particular political thread. But I think, I'm trying to think about it, but I think it also keeps me small in some ways, because I sort of, in some ways, I haven't got the guts to do it, but in other ways, I'm sort of trying to think about bringing my audience together as opposed to dividing them. It's like this is sort of my personal cutting edge. I loved hearing about what you said about those three black writers and about our common human threads that you're reaching for, because I think in your songs you are, from my perspective as a listener, you seem not afraid to say, real things with no sugarcoating and no, without hiding anything. Anyway, I'm inspired by the path that you've carved out there. You spoke on this a little bit. You sort of mentioned this, but I think that writing songs about oppression and our history, about politics, can be such a challenge because the songwriter has to do a balancing act between communicating information and ideas and weaving them together with poetry, melody, rhythm in a way that, I think we all intend to touch and inspire our audiences. And so I'm just curious, in terms of craft, as a writer, what's that process like for you, marrying the message with the art?
Well, I did learn something on my album Single Bullet Theory. I stumbled into it. I don't know what happened. It was probably many things at once, but I also was a very shy person. Very shy on stage in the beginning. I used to not talk between songs. I just be like, this next song is called Fuck You. Just wail into something and shred on my guitar and then retreat, shred, retreat, shred. And, I've worn a hole and two guitars from aggressive strumming.
Yeah.
And
you had a very physical play style.
I'm proud of that. I worked hard for that. But along the line, and I had, she's so angry. She's got such angry songs. Angry. Which
Sure.
is annoying, true, but it's annoying. It's reductive.
Yep.
And it's racist.
Absolutely. And sexist.
But I learned that I could let the song do more of the heavy lifting than and I mean lyrically. Like I had my political songs have very pointed lyrics, more and more so as they've evolved, but I learned that I could just let that do the work. I didn't have to have a super aggressive, look at me, I'm so pissed off right now, chord progression around it. I mean, I would and I will if it's appropriate, but I kind of learned I could sneak it in a little, just lay back and just have a nice little groove.
Yeah.
And some people have commented, I'm grooving to your tune, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what did she just say? Like, go back and catch some of the lyrics. So a lot of my songs since Single Bullet Theory have not lost their weight lyrically, perhaps even gained more, but the musical vehicle that they're delivered in has changed a lot and expanded a lot. And I didn't see that coming, but I welcome that. And I think that opens more doors for a listener, too, or potential listeners.
What was it about that, or the recording of, or the writing of that record that brought that insight?
It was just a song that I wrote from that. And that song has a mix of both the things on both ends of myself that I am talking about. The aggressive strumming, a tune called The Devil's Henchman. And then there's also a song called Amen, and that's the song I'm talking about. Amen, which I wrote about the laws that the Patriot Act that was passed after 9/11, and all of the new bullshit rules, intrusive government, whatever, spying on your neighbor kind of stuff, which accelerated the division that we see today, I think. But it was already on its way. But
Yeah.
I wrote a tune about that, about the Patriot Act. And it's very pointed. I name names. In it. But it's got a very bouncy beat. It's not in your face
Right.
musically.
Right.
And so that tune was a sort of a pivot point where I thought, oh, I can still say all this, but kind of
Right.
let it hang.
What an interesting discovery and observation. It's kind of like power comes in lots of forms and faces and styles.
Like I'm not very pop, but I could be a little more pop leaning and still be just as heavy as
Sure.
I had been. Yeah.
That makes sense. I firmly believe that the personal is always political, and
Yeah.
as such a visible political songwriter, I'm wondering what you think is your most personal song, or one of your most personal songs.
I mean, they're all personal. I probably, I have a tune called Hotel Pocatello that will be on my next project. That's sort of a breakup, looking in the rearview mirror kind of song. It's very personal. I'm very proud of it. Of things that I've released already, especially from the album Plainfield, probably My Brother Was. Obviously, yeah.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah. Thank you. That's about my brother who committed suicide in '08. And that's still very personal, but again, we all experience loss, so it is and it isn't. And I believe it's the job of the artist to walk through the fire and to sit in the muck and then spit it back out so that the rest of us can kind of have something to hold on to, or a little pocket flashlight to make a way through all this terror of being a human.
Oh, so beautifully said.
And I think the first track on Plainfield, Black Bear, is also very personal. I'm a queer person, lesbian, and it took me a long time to come out personally, and even longer to come out in my art. And even though I already had, before that song was more of another leap forward, and yeah, I'm not going to be afraid to talk about this either.
Yeah.
So.
Well, spoiler alert, Black Bear is the song of yours that I have chosen. I love that song, so we'll listen to that in just a minute. But I have one last question, which is, I saw that Passim, famous club Passim, the famous folk club in Cambridge, where you and I have both spent some real time. In fact, you're playing there February 1st, which this episode will actually air after February 1st, unfortunately, for listeners. You've missed that show if you missed that show. But they have a terrific lineup for a black folk festival called We Black Folk coming up. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to ask you a few versions of this question. You can choose which one you want to answer. In lieu of that festival, I'm wondering if you have any advice for new songwriters, or if you have particular advice for black new songwriters, or black female songwriters, or you have advice for new songwriters of color, whichever version of that question seems more interesting to answer.
Well, I would go back to what inspired me to walk the path that I have been on as a songwriter, which is to be honest, not to be afraid to be vulnerable. There's strength in vulnerability. There's universality in vulnerability. And, we as people of color, as queer people, as anything outside of the shrinking mainstream,
Yep.
we have a unique perspective of the real truth in our country and our world. And it's vital to continue to reveal and to speak those truths so that collectively we can have conversations over division and work towards healing and true community. So that's what I would say. And to be yourself, because there is only one you and the truth of you, and you're the only one who can bring that forward. So.
I like the way you talk about things. No wonder your songs are so good.
Thank you.
All right, well, now we'll listen to our first song of yours, which is the one that I've chosen. And again, it is Black Bear from your 2016 album, Plainfield.
Dated me a black girl and I had my heart. Pocatudinous, but had me in disregard. Wooed with a white women, wrested back control. Twist and contortionism took its toll. Black bear gone. Black bear boogie on. Boogie on. I dated many men a long, long time ago. All I say, I ain't doing that no more. My guitar don't back talk or lie. I'm a little player and she's my guide. Black bear gone. Black bear boogie on. Black bear gone. Black bear boogie on. Boogie on.
Again, that was Black Bear by my guest, Pamela Means. So on this newest listen, I heard some new things that were mostly musical. So are you playing in an open tuning on this song?
Yes, open C.
Open C. Awesome. And somehow I didn't really notice on my previous listens, like almost the whole second half is like an instrumental. There's a chorus in between it, but it's really cool because there's so much going on lyrically in this song. And then again, the chorus does, come back in the second 2 minutes of the 4-minute song. But there's so much energy. I think I was so focused on the lyricism, I didn't really notice how much energy there is in those two kind of strumming open solos. Anyway, I just find them unique and it's the first half of the song is so powerful with all of the verses, and you really back it up, and the back end really carries on, musically with a similar energy. I don't know. I find it interesting and unusual.
It does have a little breakdown.
Yeah.
The first half of my discography, I had no choruses, or very few sections that repeated themselves, because I thought that was cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was an artist. And,
Mm-hmm.
But I would sort of have an instrumental section maybe that repeated itself as a sort of chorus. And
Interesting.
all the songs from Plainfield were written when I'd stopped touring and started therapy, and was in my head a lot and wanted to stay on top of my creative stuff. And so Peter Mulvey and Joe Panzetta, his former bandmate, our old friend, the three of us formed a songwriting circle. And so for 2.5 years, we each would write a song and email it to each other on a Tuesday. And we each wrote over 100 songs. And so Plainfield are the best of that batch of 100 songs. And in that process of writing a song a week, pretty much we skipped some weeks, or I would write the same song for 4 or 5 weeks in a row. James Madison came about that way. I thought, well, I guess I've proved my point that I don't have to write a chorus, and I have realized that all of my favorite music has a chorus, including Joni Mitchell, Prince, and anybody that I could list that wasn't a jazz instrumental. And even a jazz instrumental standard has a chorus that you swing back to, and there are lyrics with a chorus that you go back to. So I realized that, and I thought, oh, yeah. And also, I had a long stretch of people saying, can you play that one song where you I don't know the name of it, you kind of you talk about the thing, and there's no reference, because there's nothing that they could sing along to.
Right.
And so I gave in on that point and thought that I could, I guess here I am thinking about the audience now, bring more people in. Sure. Or make my music a little more accessible. Yep. Just singing a chorus, whatever. And so I committed from that point on that I would never write a song that didn't have a chorus.
Wow.
And so Black Bear is probably the last, and Tuesday Come Early on that album are the last songs I've written without a chorus. Well, actually, Black Bear does have a chorus.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it has that long instrumental break, so that's probably like the teasing a part of, okay, I'm going to do it this way now.
Right. Oh, it represents changing. Sure. In the first verse, you use the word pulchritudinous, which is a gutsy songwriting move. I had to look it up. Assuming there are others out there who aren't using pulchritudinous on a daily basis, it means beautiful. Is that right? It means beautiful?
Means beautiful on the outside.
Ah, means beautiful on the outside.
A
Okay.
very important distinction. Not
Oh,
just
yeah.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful on the outside. Which suggests what?
Right, right.
Yeah, that was a dictionary.com word of the day, which I've used a good half a dozen times in my career.
Oh, that's great. Well, I was gonna ask what made you want to start out with a word with such literary weight in this song, but it seems like maybe I have my answer. But go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I was just messing with the dictionary.com word of the day. Um, in the middle of whatever I was, what I was writing about that
Yep,
particular relationship.
sure. I love the chorus, which again is Black Bear Gone, Black Bear Boogie On. It's a striking piece of poetry, and I get three strong feelings from it. First is, how you're referring to yourself or the narrator as Black Bear, which is so rich with metaphor in that I hear you as an African heritage person, you as a female, you as proud and strong. But in the context of the song, being a bear to me has a solitary quality as well. And then you make these two statements. Black Bear Gone is such a great statement. To me, it's a mic drop, a real expression of power. But at the same time, it carries the sadness of love lost, something I have certainly written plenty about. But then you follow it up with Black Bear Boogie On, which balances out the chorus so nicely. It takes the gravity of you as a black bear and lets us know that as you move through life with loss, you've held on to fun and joy. You're not trudging forward. You're boogieing on. Is my read. It's sort of the way I feel about that chorus. So anyway, any comments about that?
That's all nice. I think that's true. I think humor and the guitar have helped me be on the planet this long.
Mm,
Um, and I think the Black Bear touches on all those things you mentioned, and also just the sort of lumbering on its own, lumbering across the road into the woods, just. And when I lived in Plainfield, the first time I saw black bears just out, you know, running around, running across the yard. Um, Fortunately, I was always inside or in the car when I saw them, but I think all those things probably came together. And there was when I lived in Plainfield, I was healing from a lot of loss and heartbreak, and I was alone and lonely at times and isolated and very introspective and actually very dark times of starting therapy and starting to peel back and explore onion layers of my life and unexamined grief and trauma and all the places that went. And so yeah, I was in it when I wrote that song. So I don't think I had the perspective of. I don't think I thought about much what I meant. Those words just came out,
mm-hmm.
and I might have thought about them later. And in fact, my ex one day was talking about that song, and she said, "Well, that's you, though."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "What?" What? Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's me. So, so it was me, and I was also detached
Right,
in a way. Yeah.
right. But when you have the language of songwriting, sometimes it can work independently from your consciousness and
Yeah.
from the words that you have to put to something. Uh, yeah, that you can put
I've
together.
written many things and then gone back later and we're like, oh, maybe is that what I meant?
Right,
Oh.
right. We kind of intuitively find these
You don't
deeper
have to
truths.
know. Just write
Right,
it.
right. Oh,
Get out of the way. Something's coming through.
speaking of good advice. Um, there's something lovely about the final verse. My guitar don't backtalk or lie. I'm a little player and she's my guide. You've taken us through three kinds of difficult relationships, and now you're presenting your partnership with your guitar, which might have seemed melancholy or lonely, since a guitar is not a person. It doesn't land that way to me. There's something lovely and exciting about the fact that this, final lover is actually right there in the room with you. You're playing it, and in a sense, she's playing you, I think is what you're saying here.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like what I said, something's coming through, so get out of the way.
Right.
And the guitar is another appendage. It's an extension of myself. It's been a beacon, a life raft, literally. It's been how it is a pen and paper in itself. It's a way how I process and examine and discover myself, my thoughts, my feelings. It's how I get through the other side of troubling things. And it is true. It doesn't lie to me. It doesn't play games, or it doesn't mind fuck me. It's a fucking guitar.
Yeah.
And it's there to offer so much more than I have even discovered yet. But if I sit with it, she'll talk to me.
When did you get your first guitar?
I've had toy guitars since I was probably 8, and then I borrowed a real guitar with 6 strings on it and everything when I was 14, and had some lessons at the Y. I taught myself until I was 18, and then I started to study classical guitar at the Wisconsin Conservatory. That was one of the best choices I ever made.
Wow.
And in the middle of that, began to study jazz, which I wasn't ready for at the time, but it planted some seeds, and I went back later.
Oh, so cool. And when did you write your first song with lyrics?
Well, I was writing poems, in my single digits, and in adolescence, writing really bad, cliche, cheesy songs. I had my little binder. I read my little songs in that I wouldn't show anybody. And then the first song I wrote that wasn't so terrible is called If I Were, and it's on my first album. And that's the first song I wrote. I was probably 20 or something like that. And that's the first song that seemed to just come out of nowhere. It was like, whoa. And it's still a very special song. Yeah, I thought they were all going to come that way.
Sadly, no. What a great story, though. All right, well, now we will play the song that you chose. All right, actually, full disclosure, this is unusual, but you offered 4 different songs, and I chose this of the 4 songs that you chose. It's James Madison, also from your 2016 album, Plainfield.
Free spirit men, some grew hemp on the plantations. All had slaves, they didn't free 'em. All had slaves and some fucked 'em. Jimmy James Madison didn't give 2 shits about anyone. Polk's manifest destiny didn't work out for the Cherokee. Jimmy James, he said, the purpose of the government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority. Two-party system seemed like one, gold at the top and the rest on rickety rungs. got the money, we got the guns, we got greed and idiocy, and embarrassment to everyone with any sense of decency. The purpose of the government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority. The purpose of the government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority. Prime perverts police populations, prisons populate, prophets, predictions, politicians salivate. Ellsberg, Manning, Snowden, Davis, heroes and dissidents, we all could use a daily dose of civil disobedience. We all could use a daily dose of civil disobedience. The purpose of the government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority. The purpose of the government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority.
That was James Madison by my guest Pamela Means. So again, this is really interesting. On this fresh listen, it was the musicality that stood out to me. And this time I noticed you've got these amazing fills and licks that kind of like sort of toy with the momentum of the song throughout the song. These great little things. You know, that's not unusual when you listen to a whole band perform a song, but it's pretty unusual for a solo guitarist to be able to do that. I'm noticing that you're a sick guitar player. So very, very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my next comment goes to your lyrics. I love when a songwriter can pull off starting a song with something that kind of smacks you across the face. In a way that you love. I had, again, your buddy Peter Mulvey on the show recently, and we listened to his wonderful song, Just Before the War, which starts, "We used to hate that little fucker." He commented that oftentimes when he sings that, someone in the audience laughs because it makes them so uncomfortable that they don't know how to respond. I also think of Ani DeFranco, who was a huge influence on both of us. Her song Subdivision starts, "White people are so scared of black people." I'm not sure I've ever heard a song start out as radically honest as you have here, where you say, founding fathers, free spirit men, some grew hemp on their plantations, all had slaves, but they didn't free them, all had slaves, and some fucked them. You're taking on our country's legacy of slavery, sexism, male domination, sexual violence, and you're taking it on head on. And, you know, it's powerful and amazing. It's also uncomfortable, and that feels like an important part of the message to me. You being comfortable isn't the most important thing. If we're going to be real enough with each other to change the world, we're going to have to be uncomfortable, because the truth is frequently pretty fucking uncomfortable, painful, awful, and, you know, we've got to face it together. So anyway, that's I like the way you begin this song, and any comment about any of that?
Well, yeah, I'm not afraid to make people uncomfortable. And you're right. It forward movement is going to require discomfort at the least, and no one likes discomfort. And and no one wants to provide it. You know, I've had other artists say to me, I'm glad you're saying what you're saying because I'm too afraid to. That's
Yep.
a bummer.
Yeah.
You know?
It's an irritating thing to hear, at the least.
But yeah, you know, also I kind of don't have a choice because
Totally.
I am in discomfort most of the fucking time.
Yep.
And so if I'm going to write about anything, honestly, which I think is necessary for good art,
Yep.
it has to have honesty, whatever your medium, your platform. It's going to involve uncomfortable moments that come from truth. It's not designed to be malicious or to make you uncomfortable. It's just the truth. And, you know, also, that particular song pisses me off. The chorus are his actual words. James Madison, he wrote in the late 1700s, Federalist Paper number 51, when all these little property-owning white dudes were figuring out how do we make a country, who's going to have power, who's going to get to vote, who's going to have any say. It's going to be propertied white men, and how do we ensure that? What are we really trying to do? Well, we have to ensure that the minority of the opulent is protected from the majority. That means
That's
like
incredible.
our little richies need to be protected from these dumbasses who have to work their own oxen or whatever, you know? And
Yeah.
they're still doing it. They're
still
doing
doing it.
Nothing has changed. It's just gotten more and more clever
Right.
at different ways to achieve that. And so I'm just doing my due diligence as a citizen of this country to take in the words of the founding father and to further break them down so the rest of us can really understand what the fuck he was saying, what they were all saying, what they still say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's get to it.
Let's
So
get
I
to
started
it.
out the gate, yeah. With a
Hell
nice
yeah.
little, I love alliteration as a writer, so founding fathers, free spirit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, a part of me, sometimes I change. All had slaves didn't free them. All had slaves and some fucked them. Sometimes I change that to rape
Yeah.
because that's really the word. They
Yep.
didn't have affairs
Right.
with black women. They raped them.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson raped Sally Hemings. So, and that's even more uncomfortable to
Yeah.
sing
Right.
and to
I'm
hear.
sure.
But since I've recorded that song, I'll change that word often. Yeah, live.
Bold.
Because you know, to
smart.
not change it, it diminishes the truth.
Totally.
What really happened.
Absolutely.
And I kind of regret that I didn't do that at the start.
It's amazing that this incredibly bold first verse you regret not making even bolder. But I see that that's who you are, and also and how amazing that you've repurposed his ridiculous statement that this statement is in the Federalist Papers, that the purpose of the government is to protect the rich from the poor, that they were so brazen they didn't even think they had to hide it, they just wrote it right there.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
incredible. And I love that you've put this to song. I like how you call him Jimmy James. Feels like an elegant way to take this celebrated white, racist, rapist historical figure down a notch, or maybe 10 notches. And I like, it also has a nice aesthetic quality. Like it sounds cool in song form. So does Two-Party System. Seems like one, gold at the top, and the rest on the rickety rungs.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's fun the way you're having fun with the language of a song that's not dealing with fun things. Like again, this is I enjoy the artistry. You know, it's like our songs at some level are meant to entertain, and even revolutionary songs. I mean, it's like who said if I can't dance in your revolution, I don't want any part of it, or whatever that
Right.
that quote
Right.
is. You know, it's like if you don't make it accessible to people and don't make these really crucial things part of human being life where we relate to each other and care about each other and have fun with each other, we can't really accomplish any of these things that we're trying to accomplish. And I feel like your song adds to that nicely. Anyway, similarly to the boogie on part of Black Bear, I feel like you're going out of your way to be playful with difficult subject matter. Again, on the thread of aesthetics, you mentioned the alliteration. I like the verse where almost every word starts with a P. Prying perverts, police populations, prisons populate, prophets, P-R-O-P-H-E-T-S, profits, P-R-O-F-I-T-S, predictions, politicians, salivate. That's a lot of P's in a row.
Yeah.
And the letter P is so percussive. This verse reminds me of one of my favorite lyricists, which is Tupac Shakur, who often uses consonants in this way to turn his voice into a drum. I don't know if you're a hip hop head like I am.
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel a rap or slam poetry influence here. Does that occur to you when you're doing it?
Absolutely. I mean, I would like to cover a Tupac tune. I haven't found one that I can own yet. I did. I used to do Big Papa for a while.
Oh, sweet.
And I actually recorded it. And
is that I love it when you call me Big Papa? That one.
Right.
Put your hands in the air.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of sassy to reclaim some of that language, like, I see, so you should be having my baby.
That's right. Fantastic.
But then George Floyd happened, and I was mixing and mastering that record at the time, Pamela Means and the Reparations, and it didn't feel right to, there's a lot of N-word in that tune.
Yep.
And even before that, it's like, yeah. And I went back into the studio to make see if we could, wiki, the words out to still release it, and it was too many. It
Too
was
much.
Cartoonish.
I hear that.
So I didn't release it, and I don't regret that. It didn't feel right. So,
Sure.
But I do want to. I've been doing a Mac Miller tune.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's cool to reclaim. He's still a white dude. I love Mac Miller.
Sure.
But when I do covers, I work to be really mindful at also covering Black and brown artists and queer artists. So I would still like to find another hip hop tune.
Yeah.
Or even
That's great.
Lauryn Hill or something. But some of this stuff is like so. Whoo!
Yeah, she's incredible. Yeah.
I'm very influenced by all of that. And also, I say frequently, Duke Ellington said there are only two kinds of music, good and all the rest. And so I just love to absorb all the good stuff, everything I can find.
That's great. I love that. I used to play Biggie Smalls' Hypnotize on the Boston subways when I was playing the subways.
Nice.
Also a problematic song in some ways, and I adjusted. But about 10 years ago, I was playing Pac's Dear Mama on I just decided to play it on a tour. And that one it's such a beautiful love song and is really start to finish. There's nothing that I think is hard for any particular group. It's just a really genuine love song to his mother who, and the ways that she was victimized as a, raised poor Black female and all the things that she did for him and, her brilliance and her strength. And it's such a celebration of her life. So I love that one.
Jay-Z has a nice tribute to his mother too, "Smile" on his 444 album.
That is?
She came out later in life, and it's really beautiful.
It is a beautiful song. Yeah. I fancied myself a art house rap fan for a long time, and then when the Black album dropped, I just had to reconcile to reckon with the fact that Jay-Z was my favorite rapper, and I had discounted him as pop and as fluff. And to this day, nobody speaks to me like Hove does. I love what he does. Obviously,
Same.
He's not
I
perfect
come to
either.
things late. I didn't listen to Mac Miller until he was gone. I wasn't deep into Jay-Z except for his hits, but until the video with that sampled Nina Simone on his 444 album.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Crap, what's it called? I have to look it up.
it's kicking around in my head as well, but I can't remember. I'm a little bit less familiar with that record.
The video is really incredible. With
Well-
all those racist caricatures of monkeys and stuff from back in the early 20th century.
Oh, wow.
Video. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go check it out. We'll have to talk Jay-Z and Mac Miller and hip hop another time in more detail. Well, to finish out the show, we'll each share one cool thing. That's something that's piqued your interest, or even something you've been mildly obsessed with that you think our listeners might enjoy. Do you want to go first or me?
Well, I'm obsessed with cosmology, and if I had another life, I would be an astrophysicist or cosmologist and study the universe. And I'm deeply interested and fascinated with all things billions of years in evolution and light years, and having grown up in Wisconsin, and I went to Lutheran schools, which were very fundamentalist, stupid, ignorant, racist, but also still teaches, I don't think they've changed anything, that the Earth is 6,000 years old, and the dinosaurs are fake because the devil, was tricking us with the footprints, and I believed all that until early adulthood.
Wow. Sure, as you would.
And also, actually, side note, I have an understanding of how evangelicals are immovable in their positions, because you're talking about, in their frame of mind, eternal stuff. So people who really believe this dumb shit, they're not changing their mind, because I didn't, and I would have fought you, would have arm wrestled you about this stuff.
Wow.
Until for me, in fact, I think had I not been a queer person, I would have never come to a point where I had to question and then reconcile, if I could, the messages of gays go to hell, the dinosaurs are fake, or are you going to listen to your true self and be yourself? And I chose to be true to myself, and so there was no parallel. There was no coming together of those disparate parts. The dinosaurs are fake, then Moses wrote the Bible, and I'm a lesbian. They weren't going to come together in that world, so
Right.
I had to let one go, and I let the one that feels like a cartoon go. And when I lived in Plainfield, I could see the Milky Way every night, and it reignited my interest and passion in the stars and the universe, and I started to memorize all the constellations and really get deep into it. And the more that I thought about how old the Earth is, all of these things, the religion that I grew up believing just seemed more and more ridiculous. And
Sure.
what I was learning about is the truth, but it would be considered radical, or hypocrisy, or that's not the word, blasphemous.
Right.
Blasphemous. It's blasphemous to think that, no, the Earth, everything is like 12.5 billion years old. So that is a deep passion and an interest for me, to fill in all the gaps of that kind of knowledge that was denied to me until I went to seek it for myself.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah.
That's really interesting.
And my Patreon page has a little bit of a theme to cosmos stuff, so that's one little place I get to let that out. And I wrote a little tune about being an astrophysicist. That's on there.
Oh, that's so cool. Now that you're mentioning it, are you at patreon.com/Pamela Means?
Yes.
All right. So anybody who wants to become a patron, head on over there.
Right now you can join for free because I'm from Wisconsin and it's difficult to ask for money in all these different platforms now. So I'm like,
Yep.
you can just join. You can everybody can have access to everything that's up there. So.
Totally. Totally. Although since you're mentioning Patreon and asking for money, I'm a kind of a devotee of Amanda Palmer, who wrote a book called The Art of Asking. Did you read this book?
No, but I, of course, know her history.
Of course you know her. She's right, from Boston. Anyway, I feel like everybody who has a Patreon should read that book because she's such a genius about asking. The thing that most touched me from her book, this isn't my one cool thing, but I'm going to include it anyway, is she said to demand of someone is to say, I'm better than you. And to beg from someone is to say, you're better than me. But when we ask, it's an act of equality and something that we do together. So she's really
I'm gonna look
so smart about it. Yeah, it's so hard for most of us to ask, you know?
Yeah.
My one cool thing is a new comedy hour on Netflix by Michelle Wolf. People will remember her as having, for many reasons, she was a correspondent on The Daily Show for a long time. She, I think most famously, hosted I'm blanking on what it's called, the presidential, what is the dinner that they
correspondence.
Thank you, the presidential correspondence dinner. She was the host of that during the Trump era. It was incredibly bold. She was so bold that Trump tried to end the president's correspondence dinner in the wake of her having hosted it because she was such a badass. Anyway, I love Michelle Wolf. Her previous comedy hour is also very good. This new one, it's edgy, it's funny, and it's so thoughtful. She does such a nice job of really trying to think about important things. She's irreverent about them, as comedians are wont to be, but she really never compromises on just how smart she is. So I think it's three different instead of being 1 hour, it's 3 20-minute segments from 3 different cities. Okay. And I think they're really good.
I love stand-up.
If you got Netflix, it's free.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Pamela Means, it was so great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mohammed. It's been an honor.
You can find everything Pamela Means at PamelaMeans.com, including her tour dates, music lessons, and workshops. You can also find where to listen to her music there. All of this will be in the show notes, as will be a link to her Patreon. I'm Mohammed Seven. You can find me at Mohammed7.com. That's MUHAMMAD and SEVEN, like the number. There you can find my music and tour dates, as well as how to get in touch if you're interested in songwriting, coaching, or lessons. Again, you can become a patron via the link in the show notes or by searching for Mohammed7 on patreon.com. If you'd like to ask a question about songwriting and have me and my guest discuss it on the show, you can send those to me via social media message or by email. Just check the link tree for those. You can also find it in the show notes. Many thanks to Andrea32, who left this review of the show on Apple Podcasts. She said, just listen to the first podcast, very insightful. Right out the gate, he and Mira got to the process of songwriting that is unique to each individual. Already following We Flew Off the Page, looking forward to more. Thanks so much for listening, Andrea32. I'll leave you today with this quote from John Lennon, who said, "A dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality." I'll see you back here next time on We Flew Off the Page.